Seat 7A, Part 2 of 4. The figure in Seat 7A was a man. Mateo could see that much from 14 rows back. He sat with the stillness of someone asleep. But his head was not against the window and his chin was not on his chest. He sat perfectly upright, spine straight, hands resting on his thighs, face turned directly toward Mateo across the dim orange length of the car. That was the part that made the coffee turn to ice in Mateo's stomach. The face turned looking. Not at the ceiling, not at the seat back in front of him, not at the darkness outside. Directly at Mateo. Across 14 rows of empty and occupied seats, through the low amber light, without movement, without fidgeting. Just looking. Mateo pressed his glasses firmer against his nose and told himself he was being irrational. He told himself the figure's head was simply resting at an angle that appeared, from distance and in bad light, to be facing him. He told himself this was what happened when a man spent 4 hours staring at spreadsheets and then looked up. He began to gather his things. He would go to the dining car. He would get a real coffee. And he would take 2 minutes to not look at any numbers, and then he would come back. And he would count again, and there would be 11 passengers, and he would finish his report. He stood. He put his laptop into his messenger bag. He pulled on his jacket. He walked toward the front of the car away from Seat 7A, taking the aisle at a normal pace, not fast because there was no reason to walk fast. He passed the sleeping woman in the gray headscarf. He passed 2 men playing dominoes at the little fold-out table. He passed a teenage boy with earbuds in, leg bouncing against the footrest. He kept his eyes ahead. He reached the door at the front of car 7 and pushed through it into the connector passage between cars. The loud rattling metal accordion tunnel that smelled of iron and grease and the heat of the desert night bleeding through the walls. He stopped in the connector passage. He put his hand flat against the outer wall and he breathed. The train rocked. The metal groaned around him. Through the small scratched window set into the connector wall he could see nothing. Only darkness and the faint luminescent stripe of the track receding behind them, impossibly fast, pointing back toward a station that was now hours away. No stops for 12 more hours. He breathed again. He pushed through into car 6. He found the dining car. He ordered a coffee he didn't need and he sat at the narrow service counter and he took out his phone. He called the bureau's after hours line. The call connected. He heard 3 seconds of the pre-recorded greeting and then the line dropped. No signal. He looked at the signal indicator on his phone. 1 bar, 0 bars, nothing. The desert doing what deserts do. He sat with his coffee and he opened his phone's offline files and he read what he had saved about the Benmansour case. Farouk Benmansour, 53 at the time of his disappearance, had been a senior trade investigator for the Algerian Ministry of Commerce. He had been working a financial fraud inquiry, the same broad category of fraud that Mateo was now examining from a different angle, in the same industry, with the same type of hidden payments. Benmansour had taken the Zarqa Express south on the 14th of March 2009. He had bought a ticket. He had boarded. He had been seen in the dining car by the attendant. By the time the train reached its terminus at dawn, he was gone. His luggage was still in his seat. His briefcase was gone. No body was ever recovered. The desert, the investigators wrote, had taken him. The case was closed in 2011. His family had buried an empty casket. Mateo's coffee was in his hand and he had stopped tasting it. The Zarqa Express. Benmansour had disappeared on the Zarqa Express. The same train, the same route, the same 14-hour crossing. Mateo had chosen this train because it was the fastest connection, because it crossed overnight, because he could work in uninterrupted silence. He looked at his phone one more time, 0 bars, and then he looked at his watch. On 3 a.m. He had been on this train for 3 hours and 46 minutes. 10 hours and 14 minutes remained. He put his phone in his jacket pocket. He picked up his bag. He decided he was going back to his seat, and he was going to sit in it, and he was going to keep his eyes on his screen and not on the rest of the car. He walked back through the dining car door. He walked back through car 6. He pushed back into the connector passage between 6 and 7. He stopped. There was a man standing in the connector passage. Standing in the space that barely fit one person, between the rattling walls, in the dark, between the cars. The man was tall. His suit was dark navy pressed clean, a white pocket square folded at the breast. His hands hung at his sides, fingers extending past his knees. His face was turned toward Mateo, and where his eyes should have been there was only white. Smooth, full white, like the surface of a hard, boiled egg, no pupil, no iris, catching no light but somehow visible. And at the center of his chest, spreading dark and wet through the pressed navy fabric, was a stain that had not been there a moment ago and was growing. The figure did not move, it simply stood, and it was waiting. Mateo took one step backward and his heel met the connector door and it would not open. And the figure in the dark suit took one slow, silent step forward, and the wet stain at its chest had spread to cover the entire front of the jacket, and its mouth opened, and from it came no sound but the exact mechanical click of a financial spreadsheet auto-saving. That's it for Part 2. Follow Untold Lores for Part 3. Like and subscribe for daily stories.